Well, welcome everyone to today's webinar, Roads That Report, the Future of Local Government's Infrastructure Monitoring. This is part of Connect Me Asset Mapping Events, GIS, and AI for Local Government Compliance Reporting and Asset Management Series. My name is Mark Sheehan. I'm the Deputy Division Chief of the Office of Land Surveys, the Division of Right-of-Way Land Surveys with the California Department of Transportation here in Sacramento. I'll be monitoring the event and hosting the Q&A later in the presentation. Before we get started, we'd like to run a quick poll of the audience, this just to find out where you're from, what industries and sectors you work in. The poll will pop up momentarily, and while we're filling in the poll, I'd like to keep rolling here. We'd like to have an interactive event today, so please enter your questions into the Q&A space located on the bottom of the navigation bar of your screen. There's no need to raise your hand, just post all the questions in the Q&A space. The presenters will respond to all the questions at the end of the presentations in the panel discussion session. Also, please be sure to participate in any other audience polls as they may pop up. For information about the speakers in the event agenda, click the Resources tab at the bottom of your screen. You will have some useful links in the Resources sections, which you can access at any time. This session will be recorded and will be available for download on demand after the event. You will receive an email notifying you when the recording is available. We'd like to thank our webinar series sponsors, Carasoft and Bad Al, for making this educational opportunity available to you, and Blinksy for sponsoring this session. Today's speakers, in order of their presentations, will be Jennifer Perkins from Vertical Solutions Lead from Brightly Software, Mark Pitton, CEO of Blinksy, and Michelle Fultz. She is the L&D Geospatial Section Lead Manager for the Virginia Department of Transportation. So what are we doing today? Session overview. Local governments and state governments face mounting pressure to maintain safe, compliant roadways while contending with limited budgets, staffing shortages, and aging infrastructure. Manual inspections consume valuable resources and often fail to detect emerging issues in time to prevent costly repairs. AI-powered dashcam imagery provides scalable, cost-effective solutions while delivering continuously monitoring, automated compliance checks, and actionable insights without the constant need for field deployment. Hopefully, by the end of this webinar, you'll understand more about AI-powered efficiency, passive data collection and integration, regulatory compliance, and proactive maintenance. And now let's go to the poll results. So just the poll results will show up that you can scroll down and read them. Okay, so the first question, your organization type, local governments, coming in at 52%, state governments, 27%, the feds, 2%, probably not too many of you left, that number is understandable. Academia, 2%. Industry looks like 11%, and others 8%. Where are you located? United States, overwhelmingly 97%. Oh, 2% from Africa and 2% from Asia. Fantastic. Your business sector looks like land and public admin planning comes in at 19%. Transportation, 30%. Public information, 2%. Emergency public safety, 2%. Public works and utilities coming in at 35%. Sustainability, 2%. And others, 17%. Your municipality population size, under 25,000, 27%. 25 to, what is that, 50,000? I'm gonna have to put my glasses coming in at 14%, 50,000 to 100 coming in at 18, and over 100,000 coming in at 41%. Thank you everyone for participating in the poll. I'm going to kick it over to our first presenter. Jennifer, you're up.
Mark, thank you so much. I'm really excited to be here today to talk about roads that report. I'm going to just share my screen and let me know that you guys can see that. Looks good. Perfect. Thank you so much. I am extremely excited to be here today. I am a long-term government employee and supporter, and to be able to be here today to talk with you is really fantastic. Whoops, just started the subtitles by accident. Excuse me. I don't want to go through my entire bio for you, because that's available for you to see in, as Mark said, in the resources area. But it is important to sort of let you guys know what my background is and where I come from and why I'm here talking today. So I have spent the majority of my time in government. Over the vast majority of my career has been on the working beside or in government, mostly in infrastructure and IT. So have a variety of experiences and a variety of customers that I've worked for. Gives me a kind of a broad view over what it is that we do, particularly where technology can help local and state governments be more efficient and understand how to make decisions in a better way with more data. Sorry. There we go. So I wanted to start today with what the mission is. What is our mission? We are all mostly government employees that are working very hard to properly maintain the community's roadway network. Actually a very simple statement, but is really generally the basis of what we do. The trick here, in my opinion, is to define what properly is. And that's kind of what I'm going to take you through today. Others will talk about new technology. We have a case study and actual user experience coming later. But I'm going to sort of set the stage with what is it that we do and how do we do that. So if I was to define the word properly, it might be different for everybody. So as you look at some of these pictures, some of you may look at these and say, that's okay. That's properly maintained. That's the expectation that we have. You know, maybe it's not perfect, but it's sort of good enough for whatever the purpose of the roadway is. Some of them you say, absolutely not. That is a failed asset. That is, especially that one in the middle on the bottom, that is unacceptable. In my community, that would be looked at as a failure. So I guess the point here is that properly is somewhat in the eye of the beholder. So I like to tell a funny, sort of a little funny story that drives this home for me. And that is, I'm sure many of you have children, and I do have children as well. And when I tell my children that it's time to clean their room, as they've gotten older, they've gotten a little fresher, and they look at me and say, "You're clean or am I clean?" And I usually laugh because the word clean is not specific. And so if I let them just do clean as they think of the clean, it will not meet my expectations. And so it needs to be clarified. And of course, I always say my clean. So that's a service level expectation that we have in my household. There are service level expectations that your community has, whether or not it's stated outwards. And those service levels could be completely different based on factors within your community. So it could be that you live in a very dry area and the roadways crack. And so filling the cracks, the alligator cracks that are in there, is a completely acceptable way for you to get your roadway back up to service level. Some of you live in very wet areas or have wet climates that come through, hurricanes or atmospheric rivers and that sort of thing, and they wash out roadways. Sometimes they wash out a roadway that's not a priority. It's a different tier or criticality. And so if that roadway serves a hospital, then its condition and its service level might be different than one that services two houses in a cul-de-sac. Not that those two houses aren't important, but they may not be as important or as quickly fixed as the one that serves the hospital or a school. The usage of the roadway may be different. So in some of these roads, you can see that they're sort of long haul roads. They may mostly be used by large trucks that are going to deteriorate the roadway faster. So our ruts in the areas where it's long haul trucks, what's the service level for that? Is it the same as a residential, roadway in a suburban community? Maybe not, right? And so being able to sort of understand how the usage of the road impacts that is an important factor. And clearly available funding. I mean, everybody would like to have every road paved every year. We just don't have the money for that. And it's sort of unnecessary in a lot of cases. So looking at what the funding is and how that can be utilized is an important factor in service level, because everything can't be perfect. But what is the service level that's acceptable? A lot of that depends on community expectations. So your community may expect something that's been built in over time, or the community may expect something less than what it is that you're delivering because the priorities in the town are different. And so the town may be okay with less perfect roadways or less level 5 PCI levels, 100 roadways, if the community priority at the moment is to restore the school buildings to acceptable usage, acceptable levels. So service levels can change based on all sorts of different factors. But if you don't set them, then you're subject to everybody's individual interpretation of clean, or in this case, properly maintain. So how do you do this? How do you set a service level? You basically have to define a number of components. And as those service levels get defined and get sort of communicated and become accepted in your community, what you can see is that it will ultimately help you determine success. And it's going to help you determine other things as well that we'll talk about in a second. So clearly you need metrics. I don't think I need to even spend any time on that one. You also need responsibilities. So a service level agreement has to have both parties involved, right? And so in a roadway, it's possible that the service level is going to be 3 with the understanding that the participants use the road properly. So if they're drag racing on the road, or if suddenly big heavy trucks are using a residential roadway that wasn't built for that, the service level is going to change. So the responsibility of a set service level actually has impacts on both parties. Clearly, performance monitoring and sort of a reporting has to be included as part of it. You have to be able to say whether you're successfully meeting that service level or not. So defining what those KPIs are. We intend to have all our roads at a PCI of 72 or higher. Or we intend to have, have traffic run during peak hours with no delays or with less than 5-minute delay. Whatever it is in your community that's important that you can measure and show success with, or show where there's an issue. And then you can dive in and try to figure out how to fix it. Those performance monitoring will become the work that gets done. So they need to be picked very carefully, because if you focus on the wrong performance metric, you will end up with the wrong outcome. And so if your main roadway has no traffic and you focus in on saying all of the roadway during peak hours will be no less than 5-minute delay, there's already not a problem there. You can show success right away and easily, but it probably masks other issues that are happening with the roadway that you should be focused on. So that's a very important piece of the setting a service level. And then the last piece is resolution time. You need to understand, and the community needs to understand, what the expectation of getting back to that service level is. So I live in Boston, and we get a lot of snow sometimes, and there has to be an expectation of when that snow is going to be removed. So not every road is clear all the time during a snowstorm, but every road is said to be treated every 3 hours. in my community. And so you should see a sander or a plow every 3 hours, unless you're in a tier 3 roadway, which is a different service level. Now, if you're on a tier 1 roadway, then you should see a plow every 1.5 hours, or a sander or a salter every 1.5 hours, because those roads need to be clearer. So resolution time is an important factor for that. Again, setting the community expectation that that's what they should see. And then when they do see it and they know what the expectation is, it's not, I only saw a plow like 3 hours ago. What's going on? It's, hey, I saw a plow 3 hours ago. Way to go, town. So all of this sounds like a lot, and sometimes it can be, but it's important. And I think why setting those service levels is an important thing to think about as you move forward in this. It definitely can help you with expectations in your community, as I've kind of already sort of showed a little bit. Properly maintain is a very amorphous title, or amorphous set of KPIs. And so what are those expectations that everybody can get behind and everybody can understand? And there's sometimes trade-offs, and those trade-offs need to be clear. Our service level is going to go down on the roadway if the funding goes down. We don't have as many paving trucks. If we don't replace the contractor money in this year's budget, we're not going to be able to pave as many roads. It's just a function of that. So the expectations need to be different. It actually, and this is why I said KPIs are important that you pick, it can drive really good improvements, clear outcomes that the public can see and that can be appreciated as quality improvements where their money is being used. And that's really important, because customer satisfaction is actually a big deal in these kinds of cases. It reduces all sorts of complaints and calls and general sort of mistrust within the public of their government, and we don't want that. It can also provide a lot of good data for decision making, and this is, I think, what the Blinksy people will talk about after me, but being able to understand what pieces of data you need from the roadway in order to make those decisions is really important. And so having the proper technology to do that and knowing what those data points are actually helps you go forward with decision making and back the decisions that you are putting out there, even if they may be controversial. And then I think the other thing that's really important is this kind of enables automation to happen. So these defined service levels help understand what the process needs to be, and it helps to create technology that can help you streamline that process, make sure that you have the data points that you need as you're going forward. So there are indicators that are out there. I just thought I'd give you an example of a couple. I usually separate these into leading and lagging indicators. So leading indicators are often the things that we talk about in the industry, things like PCI levels and crack density, maintenance backlog. It's not the sort of thing the average person is going to understand or talk about their roadways. The lagging indicators are the things that generally are outcomes and generally the public sees. So customer complaints, pothole reports. We're getting more or less pothole reports from this roadway. More pothole reports maybe shows that the PCI has declined since the last measurement of that, and it needs to be looked at again. So both leading and lagging indicators are important. Leading indicators often can head off lagging indicators. So if you are maintaining PCI ratings or your levels of service in there, or whatever metrics it is that you've determined are important, they often head off things like customer complaints and show gains around various things that the customers think are important, like potholes or traffic density. So here's the issue about what data to collect. And I'm going to leave this largely to Mark, because this is the important thing to understand. But what data you collect needs to fit into the KPIs and the service level that you've set. So if you collect, like I had said before, things on roadway throughput, where your level of service shows a certain throughput for the roadway, and you can't measure that, that's not a good KPI. So the data that you collect needs to also be related. And so that's an important component as you're looking for what software you can use and what automation you can use to help you with this process, is making sure that you tie together those pieces, the pieces of what you want to report on and the pieces of what the data is needed in order to make that happen. So lastly, I just wanted to sort of throw out some levels of service. I'm not sure you probably are all familiar with these, but generally I find when we talk about roadways, that report, we talk about potholes and things of that nature, of the roadway quality. But there are also other determinations about whether the roadway is properly maintained. There's sidewalks, there's signs, there's the sort of safety and security, the comfort level, all sorts of different things that a customer is going to feel when they're traveling, when they're being transported along that roadway. Even culverts sometimes can be considered part of the level of service. If the culverts are backed up, that's going to cause the roadway to decay faster. So maybe one of the levels of service that you have with your compatriots, if you're not managing those culverts, is to have the culverts at certain level of water density, not to exceed an amount that's going to injure the roadway, or what's under the roadway. So just sort of broaden your mind a little bit when you're thinking about levels of service, of being able to say, what is important to my community? What do I want to measure? And then having the automation help you measure that. This is the most important thing I can say, is that if you measure the wrong things, you will not be able to report on levels of service. And those things need to match. And so as Mark talks about the technology of making roadways report, think about what it is in your community that you're struggling with that you might want to be able to report on, and factor that into the conversation. And the last piece I would say is share it. There's nothing wrong about sharing levels of service. It's a great way to have a conversation with your community about what you can reasonably do with the given funding that you have. And if those levels of service aren't sufficient and the community sort of rejects that, then there has to be a talk about where the money comes from to increase the level of service if it's a money related piece. So sharing it and being transparent about what you can and cannot do sets expectations appropriately and doesn't cause there to be a dissatisfaction with something that was never intended to be in the first place. So I'm going to stick around and I'm happy to answer any questions at the end. But I wanted to invite Mark up to talk about the technology aspects of roadways to report.
Awesome. Thank you. Really appreciate the time. Really appreciate those really insightful insights. And we're really stoked to kind of dive into the next level of depth here and talk about this technology might look like at more infinite scale and what that kind of looks like from a broad scale perspective. So my expertise is really to talk about the data that's driving a lot of the decision making. Yeah, so there you go. So in my job here really is to talk a lot about the data and the commoditization of data that's going into driving these sorts of insights and delivering the sort of intelligence that's really useful, right? Michelle will join me right after this to talk about the critical information that departments of transportation and agencies need to make these decisions, and particularly how GIS plays a critical and fundamental role in making sense of this. So for us, the question was really, how do we make these insights sort of accessible to our end users? And ultimately, at the end of the day, that question of survey, right? I've heard this kind of theme around surveying and data collection, understanding the condition of the roadway. We have 4 million miles of roadway in the United States. They can't constantly and collectively be analyzed at all times. So how do we make sure that we're making sense of that in a collective way? Right? The core of our infrastructure is the single largest investment that we've made as a society. And we want to make sure that that is a critical component that we can manage and maintain and keep in its best useful life, so it serves us as taxpayers and enables the economy that we thrive on. But look, the overwhelming burdens here are pretty clear, right? You've heard time and time again, and to many of these statistics to you are a principal part of your day, right? The incredible amount of costs that we have today, the annual cost to the annual driver, right? $1,400 is the impact to a driver today of the conditions of our roadways. The extreme construction costs, 4 to 5x more than they were previously, and over $20 billion in backlog, or $200 billion in backlog, to the data that we need to fix and repair on those roadways. So it leads us to these critical pain points. And these critical pain points are really continuous stressors that we're experiencing on our roadways that we might not be realizing. We have a growing number of vehicles driving on our roadways. We have heavier vehicles than ever before. We have more extreme weather events and conditions on our roadway, and we have aging infrastructure. And you combine those things together and you say, wow, man, when you put a bunch of weight on an old roadway at the same time with more friction and more temperature, of course you're bound to run into these issues. But how do you actually do something actionable with that? How do you understand when and where to place a treatment and what to do? And that's the focus of an application like the technology that we've built to help specifically identify where these sorts of backlog and repair tasks can be done in a more preventative and prescriptive way. There is a limit to the number of humans out there that can do this work. There's a limit to the amount of budget that's available to it, but the roadway network seems to keep growing, and the wear and tear on it seems to keep growing at a faster rate than we can keep up with it. All of this collectively, of course, is really around this idea for the design to reality disconnect. We design, build, operate, and maintain our infrastructure, but we rarely think about the operations and maintenance all the way back to the design stage. How do we connect that entire life cycle? How is the road construction design being formulated in the operations, tied back into maintenance, and being collected in this cohesive ecosystem? So, of course, many data providers today, you think about this from the lens of collecting data and information. And that might be really expensive, high fidelity data like LiDAR, right? $200 to $300 per mile to collect that. It could be manually data intensive, right? Sending humans out with a truck. Many of us have done that. Many of you do that. You put someone in the passenger seat of your vehicle, you get them a clipboard, and you're riding the roadway looking for issues. Of course, expensive and risky, right? Putting folks in harm's way. And at the end of that spectrum is this image-based application. Since 2001, nearly every new vehicle off the assembly line is equipped with a camera. Physical cameras built into these vehicles to help identify where the lane is, to make sure you're not crashing into the vehicle above you. And that really means, if you factor in the vehicle replacement rate in America for personal passenger vehicles, that over the next 11 years, the entirety of the passenger vehicles on our roadway network will have these cameras inside. Well, we're today not building roadways with that use case in mind. We're not thinking about how computer readable are our infrastructure, and at what point will that have to change? We see this as a new opportunity for a change in how transportation is managed, where we think about roadways in a different way. We think about real-time awareness, understanding safety critical and fundamentally critical events that need to be reported as quickly as possible. That might not be your see, click, fix mentality. It might not necessarily be your police reporting, but it needs to be some measured, accurate system that detects an application, identifies a defect, and reports it. That's only possible if there's a seamless integration into the data systems of the DOT. And there are a plethora of them in many of our agencies. So for us, it is collecting that real-time data, making sure it can be seamlessly integrated, and then doing something about that. And that doing is the critical anticipated piece. And that might look very similar like a work order, placing a work order, assigning automatically the degree of severity of that, identifying the picture, the location, the time and date stamp, and the materials that need to be involved to allow someone to roll a truck and go fix it. Ultimately, all of that happens at the same level. I like to say, if Elon can't see the roadway in his Tesla, neither can Grandma in her Buick, and we need to be building for both Grandma and for Elon today. So automated vehicles see the infrastructure in these really unique and specific ways, right? If you think about a picture like that one that's on your screen, the AI is actually analyzing every single picture in this image point by point, and it's already making assumptions around that. It's identified if there's crosswalks and pavement markings. It's identified where the medians and the shoulders are, where the crosswalks are and the streetlights are, and it's databased all that information. When I send a human down the roadway and I ask the question, do you see a manhole cover? You might see that manhole cover, but that manhole cover might only be visible to you in a specific way in a specific application. So as we think about these things kind of coming together, we ask these fundamental also questions of, okay, well, where is the manhole in relation to the crosswalk? And where is that crosswalk in relation to the streetlight? And these sorts of fundamental questions allow us to do human-based intelligence, the types of things that machine learning isn't good at, but the types of things that humans excel at, this relationship-driven intelligence. So for us, that's the future, turning existing video insights into scalable and effective intelligence applications that empower this proactive decision-making, driving sustainability and efficiency. But, we've talked a lot here. What does it actually look like? Specific examples from across the network that we deploy this in include things like guardrail damage detection. When a guardrail is damaged, a government agency either knows or should have known that that guardrail was damaged. If it doesn't, and there's an incident or a safety event, the government might be liable. So how do we help you proactively monitor and detect these safety critical incidents? States like Hawaii DOT are using Blyncsy to analyze their statewide guardrail network every 12 hours using this technology. Additionally, we have users that look for things that might be safety critical, like cable barrier. You see that in the second example here on the image, where the barrier is slightly damaged. So it might not be severe damage. So do we need to roll a truck? But clearly it could render the government, give them some kind of liability. All these applications are really critical. At the end of the day, pavement is the single largest societal investment that we've made in America and in the world. And understanding the condition of that pavement, knowing when a small crack it turns into a pothole is crucial, because for $20 you can fix that patch, and for $10,000 you can dig up the road base and restore it. How do we make sure we're applying the right $20 treatment, the Band-Aid, to protect the boo-boo from turning into an infection? These sorts of things are crucial to the way we operate and manage and maintain our roadways. And at no time is that as practical as when you're driving through a work zone, where construction barrels move, they change, lanes are open, lanes are closed, and contractors might have liquidated damages clauses. You can't send someone out into the field multiple times a day to inspect this. So how do you use technology like crowdsourced dashcam imagery to deliver these insights in incredible ways? And largely, of course, nothing matters more than when disaster strikes. So these are two examples, one from Hurricane Milton in Florida and one from the Pacific Palisades Recovery Project in California that we're supporting, where you can see a side-by-side analysis of what the sign looked like before the hurricane, what the sign looked like after, and what this whole community looked like at the same location before the hurricane, before the fire went through, and what that fire did damage to the infrastructure around. How do you know which assets were there? How do you prove the assets' conditions? How do you use that to expedite your FEMA disaster funds and your FHWA ER funds? Crucial tasks that help recover our economies as quickly as possible. At the end of the day, though, all these things have to be integrated, and they might be integrated into a plurality of tools, including many of the Bentley Systems tools, but also applications like Esri, and of course, your asset maintenance management software platforms and applications that are really fundamental to allowing this to be scalable. All of these generate a high degree of workflow. But I really wanted to do is take you to the practical and live applications of this technology. So these are live data sets on our website that you can go to blyncsy.com and visit today to see. And the way you do that very simply is you go to blyncsy.com and you scroll to the top of our website and you actually access these data sets directly. So I'm going to show you an example of the Florida Department of Transportation, which recently used our technology to collect every sign on the state roadway network. But in addition to the signs, they wanted to know, hey, okay, great, Mark, you've shown me the sign, but I need to know the MUTCD sign code of that. This is an R3-4. I need to know if the sign's in good condition. I need to know the sign's location. I need to know where it's actually on the roadway. And let's take this a step further. I want to take a sign on our roadways, and I want to understand the text that might be on those roadways itself. So this is really crucial. So in this example, the text on the sign is uneven lanes. So now we've told you the signs, we've told you the classifications, we've even extracted the text. And you can see how the bridge for autonomous vehicles becomes really clear, because now we've identified this as a machine-readable, computer-readable text on the screen that delivers a high degree of intelligence to the end user. If it's not visible for Grandma and her Buick, it's not visible to Elon, right? At the end of the day, we need to think about the fundamentals. And these sorts of things become really commonplace. But once you have an image for a given roadway section like this, you can ask so many more questions. Hey, Mark, in that image, do you see a streetlight? Do you see other signs? Do you see pavement markings? Do you see debris? How well do you see those pavement markings? And how does this culmination allow us to understand in detail the types of applications that might be useful and crucial to the end user? So that's the really exciting part about the conversation that we're having today, right? From the use of specialized tools to allow you to drive insights and deliver work orders to an end user, to the really powerful applications within the government agency, right? The criticality of GIS, of linear referencing systems, of tying this data all back to the day-to-day work the government agencies engage in to keep our roadways in the best and free-flowing conditions on the road. But for a long time, the data collection has been incredibly cumbersome and enormously expensive. So using technologies like this, we've been able to drive down the cost by over 95% for these agencies to allow them to be really powerful and be a part of the byproduct of the work that's done every day. So those are the exciting insights that we wanted to share. But really, I want to kick it off to the masterclass in GIS, and that's driven here by Michelle from the Virginia Department of Transportation, who's really crucial to the work that we do every day and to ensuring the government has the functionality to deliver the work at the end of the day. Michelle, let me invite you up on stage.
Thank you very much, Mark. I appreciate it. Can everybody see me?
Yep, we can see you. Go ahead and share the screen then.
All right. Thank you, everybody, for coming. Hopefully it's been informative. Mine is going to be, I think, a little bit different. I'm going to be talking about information just at VDOT. My presentation is called The Step Towards GIS Success at VDOT, Geospatial Tools and Location Design Division. As most of you should know or do know, most DOTs have all sorts of different divisions or sections, and I'm in location design at VDOT, specifically in a subsection of that called geospatial. So I have been doing this for quite a while. So anyhow, my name is Michelle Fultz. I'm a GISP. Been doing GIS for roughly 34 years at various government agencies, local and state. And then I did a time as a private consultant. So I'm going to talk about VDOT itself today. We're just going to look at the background, and then I'm going to talk about what happens in my division, which is location design, geospatial. And my division for the geospatial is sort of unique in the fact that we can help anybody throughout VDOT to help with the GIS. We do have GIS people in various sections, but most of the time they're stuck with what they're doing as a job. With me, I can actually help anybody within the agency. So we're sort of unique in that step. Okay, doesn't want to move. Come on. There we go. So just the background. We're the third largest state maintained highway system in the country. Texas and North Carolina are above us. We are responsible for building, planning, maintaining, and operating the state roads, bridges, tunnels, anything related, railroads, things like that. The Commonwealth Transportation Board and VDOT will provide funding to airports, seaports, rails, public transportation. So here's some information here. This is about a year and a half old. Roughly 59,451 miles are of state-maintained roads. We have roads that are not maintained by the state. We have roughly 7,700 full-time positions, and we have a budget of $7.7 billion. So we have a little budget for a big state. Background itself on how Virginia highways got started. They were passed by the General Assembly in January 16th of 1918. Where they established that first state highway system. At that point, there were only 4,000 miles of roads and highway that the VDOT people or Virginia Highway Commissioner and his staff had to work with. Now, 95 years later, we have 58,000 miles of state highways, and it's growing, especially in the Hampton Roads area, down by the beach, and in Northern Virginia. So with that 58,000 miles, we have approximately 125,000 lane miles, once again making us the third largest. Our road network is divided into the various categories of interstate, primary, secondary, and frontage. And then we have a separate system, which is an urban system, where we have over 10,000 miles, and that is maintained by cities and towns, but it's maintained with state funds from VDOT. And I found it interesting while I was doing the background. There's actually a United States-wide report card for all of America's infrastructure. So I pulled up Virginia's, and these are the different categories that you could to choose and look at. And I chose roads since that's what I work with on a daily basis. Unfortunately, VDOT roads only came up with a C-. Some of the other categories, they were higher, but we came up with a C-. We have a lot of roads, but we don't have a big budget. So we do have some problems. But I've put a link in for all these if you want to go take a look and see on this. As a whole, VDOT has its agency mission, values, and ethics. The mission is to plan, deliver, operate, and maintain that transportation system that is safe. It enables easy movement of people and goods, enhances the economy, and improves our quality of life. And you guys may or may not have heard a couple years ago when we had a major snow and ice storm, and one of our longest highways, 95, got congested because it was a storm that hit us out of the blue. So that enabled us to show where do we need to change things to get a better movement. So even though it was a bad situation, it turned out to be good. So Virginia was able to look at its mission and replan, deliver, operate, and maintain. So we've definitely changed. We do shared values and service. We want to be responsive to the customer's needs. We want to make sure that they're safe and that they are able to ask us to improve things that need to be improved. We need to maintain their trust, respect, support, and encourage one another within our agency and other agencies to keep us going. And then, of course, like everybody, we have the employee code of ethics. And I'm not going to read that to you. You guys can take your time to read that. I'd rather get to the stuff that I do. So Virginia is broken up into 9 districts, and then we have area headquarters and the residential facilities or residencies, as they're called. So I just gave you the major districts that we are. I am located in central office. We basically help serve the districts and show them what that needs to be done. So I'm going to go into the geospatial program itself right now. We are GIS and transportation. We also get called GIST. There's actually a conference annually that has to do with GIST, but the GIST came up with a transportation infrastructure life cycle, which is here. And it starts out with your planning, then your design, then environmental management, your construction, asset management, operations, security, safety, and then right-of-way. And right-of-way right now is really big for us. But my group itself touches on almost all of these, or somebody sends us information from these and we touch on it. What our group actually does is helps put together maps, applications, mobile applications, things like that. So we do get touched with everything, and we do have all the different layers that we use involved. I don't have the number of layers. I've got some other statistics though for you. So once again, it breaks down to the major areas: highway maintenance, traffic modeling, accident analysis, route planning, and work order management systems. We would hope to have one work order management system for the location design group and anything that's related to that, and even as VDOT. But unfortunately, we have several different work order management systems, but we do have that. But the biggest thing for me is that the important objective that I need to reach here involving GIS is you see this through the visualization on maps. And we've gone from so many paper maps to handheld mobile applications, things like that. We are an Esri shop. We have over 18 applications available to us. I've highlighted the ones that we use within location design. We're starting to move forward with some of these others. We're just now getting into ArcGIS for Power BI, so I didn't really put that in there. Our main information that we use is ArcGIS Online. That's the greatest number of licenses that we have. And then we have limited licenses on ArcPro for desktop. Those licenses are usually held for the people who are what we call super users. They use it all the time to do the analysis, to do the development of the data sets, things like that, taking some of the information that what they've presented today and maybe putting it into something. Agency-wide software. This is what we have agency-wide. The reason I know that is in a couple slides. I actually worked on a special task force, and we're just finishing up that survey. But you can see all the different softwares that we have for the different divisions within VDOT. This is not just for location design, it's for all sorts of different people. So because of that, there is no GIS strategic plan. they're working on it for VDOT itself, and I'm working on one for my division as a whole. So I tried to come up with my vision and mission statements very similar to what VDOT was as a whole. So for us in geospatial section, we want to be distinguished as a leader in VDOT for collaboration, innovation, and excellence amongst our districts and central staff. That's very important to us. We feel like that we really need that. Then we have our mission statement, and we are changing this mission statement, but this gives you an idea. It all relies around collaboration, communication, data sharing, training, knowledge exchange, talking to contractors, talking to software people, trying to see what we can do and trying to get in that. We want to be able to coordinate and develop the GIS. We are in the process of establishing policies and standards that would actually go into our contracts before a project is started, so that we have GIS deliverables in the coordinate system that we need, and it's directly available to us instead of having to mess with what they're doing. Most contracts already give us GIS data, but it's not necessarily as a deliverable. So that's one of the things that we're trying to do, so that we can see where else do we need to go to get information, what else can we find software-wise that might help us, like some of the examples that were shown today. We also want to start to provide training. The only training we have is the Esri free training, and that people just don't take the time because it's not specific to transportation or to L&D. And myself and my tech are both past or present adjunct people at schools. I teach GIS at one of the community colleges here. So we have a good take on where we could start for training and getting people going. We always have to push the benefits of GIS. We have a lot of people who don't believe in GIS because they don't see the benefits of it, so that we're trying to push it. With being able to do my own section, that's really being helpful. We're being able to show the benefits of what we can do. We give presentations a lot within our agency and to individual divisions. We have a community of practice that happens once a month, so we're involved in a lot of that and doing presentations there about the benefits of GIS, and we have other people from other sections do the same thing to show everybody what's possible. And then, of course, you always have to have your KPIs. It's got to be powerful. It's got to be innovative. It's got to give you solutions. Okay, let's see here. Whoops, I lost my thing. So within location design, it's not just me. It's just not my program. You can see all the different programs that we have within location design division. And then there's us, the geospatial. And what I have is myself and one tech. And I have a staff augment of 5 different people, which I've had for 7 years, which is fantastic. And I would highly recommend it. And then the other programs within geospatial, which you'll see a picture of those in a minute, we have 6 people. So geospatial itself is a very small division, but we handle a lot. So here's all our program areas. We have survey, we have photogrammetry, we have remote sensing, we have UAS, and then we have our GIS. So with surveying, we don't have any surveyors actually in central office. We have 2 surveyors in there, but they're not actually going out and doing surveys. Those types of people are either our on-call staff or they're out in our districts. Central office people support the districts more than anything else. We have our photogrammetry where we get data in on a yearly basis. We will ask who needs data, and we'll go out and do a flight plan and put that together. We have people that are doing 3D work under photogrammetry. We have our remote sensing where we're trying to collect our LiDAR and trying to collect any information we can to help add to our projects. And then using those point clouds to start to develop, hopefully, digital twins, things like that. We have a drone program that's very active. We do not fly drones out of VDOT. That all has to come from typically contractors that we have on call that have the ability to do UAS, but I actually helped create the program for knowing when those drones are being flown, things like that. Are they on the right of way? Are they going around bridges, things like this? And they actually have to apply to let us know when they're going to fly things. And then GIS as a whole, well, there's just so much. I've got a list of the projects, some of the projects that we're doing. And here they are. We have to do a lot of projects related to the MS4 permit from our DEQ and EPA. DEQ is the Environmental Quality Division. The MS4 permit is the, let's see if I can get this right, multiple storm sewer system. Let's see, multiple storm sewer system, separate storm sewer system. So that's why we call it MS4. I should have written it down. I'm sorry I didn't, guys. But it is a permit, and it is something that goes nationwide. Every single state has to have an MS4 permit. They have phase 1, phase 2 permits. We are a phase 1, and they typically occur within the census urban areas. So we have to look at those new census urban areas every 10 years. And we are looking for ones in our MS4 that have 50,000 or more people in it. So it does constantly change. And we use that as areas of concern for this MS4 permit. So within that, we are doing stormwater basins, or what we call BMPs. And there's a series of 8 different basins and over 80 sub-basin types. There's an inspection form that captures all that. We also have our NPDES inspectors, which is the National Pollutant Discharge Elimination System, who go out and look for problems at construction sites. They go out and look and see, is the health of that project good? Is there a failing fence? Is there a failing rock dam? Something like that. So our inspectors go out and look at those from the start of the project till the very end. Part of that includes the regulated land disturbance activities, the RLDA. That's where if they disturb more than an acre of land, they have to get a construction general permit, and we have to track that to make sure, and we have to know, where is that regulated land disturbing activity? How is it going to affect other people? We are redoing our outfalls. We did outfalls over a 3-year period, 2013 to 2016. We found over 29,000 outfalls, and then we lost funding for the program. Our newest permit from DEQ and EPA states that we have to show where our new permit or where our new outfalls are. We have a couple ways of doing that. We capture those on one of our closeout forms, which is called a 445 form. Once the construction area is done and they're closing it out, they have to turn in that 445 form for closeout, and that will show us any BMPs or any outfalls. The other way that we are doing it is by a desktop model, where we have all this information, and we've got a contractor doing the desktop review, and then we'll go out and do some walking the ground truthing on this next task order. We do use that service area for census urban tracking, which is very important. We used to only do it based on the census year. Now we have our service areas, which are areas of concern, which are areas that have those 50,000 more people, now include the 2000 census, the 2010 census, and the 2010 census. And it's just going to get bigger and bigger. And those are the areas that we have to worry about when we turn in our requirement for EPA. That report is always due as of October 1st of each year. That report is based on the fiscal year of July 1st through June 30th for all our data collection. We have that UAS and a task order application for the ortho imagery and the drones. We're creating SharePoint pages for all our projects. We've got our capital trail reports and fall-on reports. That's a fairly new project that we're getting. Then the biggest one that I'm going to be working on over the next several months, along with my colleague, is our geospatial strategic plan process. We did an end user survey and a upper management survey, and we've got some timelines that we're trying to meet. But we're also now working on right-of-ways using FME software, and we're working with the right-of-way utilities people on that one. So those keep us pretty busy. Other key projects that we're working on standards for digital delivery, for the projects, coordinate system, GIS standards, governance, pilot projects. So we're doing a lot of different things. We also have a request tracking system, which shows our progress on our projects, and anything that people come in and ask us, they can look at what we're doing with it. We can assign personnel to it. We get feedback, and it's going to help us with the return on investments and show why do we need more people. So I'm going to go through just quickly pictures of our specific programs. So it shouldn't take us very long because I know I want to stay on track. Experience Builder, we're starting to move all our projects over to Experience Builder. This is our BMP, our stormwater basins. This shows you the full state. Each dot shows you a different type of basin. And then here, if you select one of those basins, it shows you all the information. You can see the information across the top. Those are some of the different ones, the miscellaneous, the permeable, underground, filter mode. Those are all the different types of basins that we have. This particular one is a straight basin. We developed a form that people fill in to give them some basic information, and then they have the inspection that they have to do, and they do take pictures. We have our NIPTs and regulated land disturbance activity. This is our first SharePoint site for that. And I've broken it up into the groupings so that you can see it because it was just so big. But we have links to everything that you might need to go to that's associated with that or associated with anything else. We have our points of contact, things like that. So this has been very, very successful, and we're going to have to continue. This is a separate NIPTs information or project with its map. These are all based in Web App Builder, so they all have to change out to either an instant app or to Experience Builder. There's an example of what the inspection looks like, and they can do it for 3 different forms, and then they can click in and get project information and inspection information. I don't even remember how many questions there are with that. We're still trying to revise it, but we have our pop-ups on our maps as well. There's the regulated land. We just take what you saw in that NIPTs form, and then we have the regulated land, and they have to come in and draw where the disturbance is for that particular project. And they also put on there which way the waters are flowing, so we know where it might discharge and where the outfall might be. We have Adopt a Highway, and this is in another group. It's in environmental stewardship in our maintenance group, but we were the ones that developed the software system for them. So this is what one of the dashboards looks like. I developed a wildlife carcass map where they go out and collect the carcasses, answer questions. We set it up for each different district that wanted to participate. Right now this is an older form, we have 5 different districts that are participating and 1 specific county that are participating. So we can track the number of carcasses that are found. We have information from the state police, but we found with ours, we actually get more information. And this helps us with trying to find a way to keep the animals safe, and come up with different things. There is a dashboard, an older dashboard showing you, how many we have, total, bear, others. Anything with others can be cattle, cats, turtles, birds, things like that. I did not put the list of others on there, but we have probably about 20 different other types. The Transportation Research Council in Charlottesville was the one that brought this project to me, and we developed it from there. It is now moving over to our environmental group. We also do nutrient credit banks. We've shown here what credit banks are available. If there is a land disturbance and they cannot find, they cannot put in like a basin there, they would have to buy nutrient credits to offset the disturbance of the land that they're creating with that project. And this just tells how many banks we have and where they can go to. We only have selected banks that VDOT will work with, even though there are more banks out there. This information for the banks of all banks is kept with the Army Corps of Engineers in Norfolk. So here's an application that we built so that they can click where they want to be. It determines the watershed lineation and tells you what HUCs are in there because everything is based by the hydrologic unit code and what basins are available. And then you can go and look and see how much phosphorus and nitrogen each bank has, because that's what we're looking for on that. We've just been involved with the Capitol Trail, which is one of our big walking trails. There's going to be another one called the Fall Line Trail, but we've done an inspection form for this. There was no way to catch up everything before that. Here's an example of what the form looks like, and of course, everything's going to have pictures. Here is our active UAS flight management, so we know what's going on and where they're flying to. And with GIS, I did a proficiency level. We are actually at the developing stages, so we're looking at building all this GIS and what we need to do. And we did that survey. Here's the results from the survey. I think we got a little over, we did a little over 270 people within location design throughout the state. We only got 17% back. We upper management, we talked about 9 districts, but we only got 3 information back from 3. So not really active. But these are some of the helpful questions that we looked at. I'm not going to spend a whole lot of time on that. Format for training, having somebody in the districts is very important. This is our new portion of building the geospatial to help us with communication, collaboration. That's the biggest thing. That's a pain point for us, is that communication and collaboration, because the people don't want to let go of things, and we're trying to get around that. So I was lucky enough to get put onto a special committee as the GIS expert for looking at the statewide structure, or the statewide strategic plan for GIS, and we're still finishing that up right now. But it is a business plan that will serve as a roadmap for the agency, and there's 6 different sections. I got number 6 for the data and technology. Common findings that we had from my user survey and this meeting, and we've interviewed people from the central office, from the districts, from the residencies, from the area headquarters. And it seems like with each meeting, we would get more people in each area. Each district probably ended up with anywhere from 6 to 10 different interviews from within and a summary. The biggest thing, which I found as well, was lack of communication and collaboration amongst the districts and central office, because sometimes central or the districts can get software or develop something that they're using and we won't know about it. So everybody is trying to get that information. They're looking for SOPs, standard operating processes, procedures, governance, workflows. So what's lacking is that, once again, communication and collaboration and passing on knowledge. We found out things live in different systems with inconsistent sharing or syncing, so we're working on that. We decided we need a centralized data management system, which I said the same thing for location and design. So this is findings from the statewide. We need to be aware of the authoritative sources. Many times the sources might get changed. We need a centralized GIS database. Lack of integrity. PlanGrid doesn't play with GIS and doesn't play with our highway maintenance monitoring system. So there's a lack of systems that people are using that don't work with GIS, and that makes it really hard. I think I'm doing okay on time. This is just what we're going to involve with for ours, for location and design itself. This is where I'm going to head to with all my information, and these are the summaries. Conclusions, GIS is a critical tool, and any software that works with GIS that we can use to improve what we're gathering, especially as we go forward, maybe getting AI in VDOT, because we're not allowed to use AI right now, will help us with the clarity, the efficiency, the accuracy. We always try to continually improve its use of geospatial technology and GIS as a whole, and in alignment with VDOT as an agency. We try to take what we have and work with people and develop custom off the shelf, but with a little bit of programming applications for people. And this is just a summary area of, who are current users of GIS, what works well, so forth. Once again, the pain points are lack of communication, lack of collaboration, lack of guidance and standards from CO. And the other big thing is lack of training and knowledge. So as we have so much software, but you get experts in that software. And if that is not passed down, or there's nobody to talk to guide you or help you or say, hey, we've done this, can we pull this into somebody else's group? We're finding that's a big problem. And it's probably the similar problem at most DOTs. And just a fun fact, my boss, my upper boss, my mid boss, his aunt is Gladys West, and she is an American mathematician, or was. She's in her 90s now. She's known for her contributions to mathematical modeling of the shape of the Earth and her work on the development of the satellite geodesy models that were later incorporated into the global positioning system. So I thought that was really neat, and a neat fact that my boss is actually her nephew, so it was very good to see. I put in their resources, and then here's my contact information, and hopefully I am on time. Any questions you can put in the question and answer, and at this time I would like to go ahead and invite the rest of the team up.
Well, we're back. I wanted to thank all the panel members for their insightful presentations about this new piece of technology. Right now, we will open it up to our Q&A. I think we have a couple of questions that were answered previously, and I'm going to kick it to Mark Pittman to talk a little bit more about the issues with car manufacturers prohibiting or charging a fee for dash cam videos or analyzing road conditions, and also can cameras detect faded signs, curbs, etc.?
Yeah, great question, Mark. And thank you for those who contributed those questions. First I'll start on the camera side. So almost the majority of our data comes from commercial fleets. So these are businesses who have a business reason to put cameras in their vehicles. Semi-trucks, delivery trucks, FedEx, UPS, you might name it. They're making sure their driver is not drunk behind the wheel, that they're abiding by federal motor carriers laws. They're looking for insurance mitigation. They have a business reason to put these cameras in. In fact, over 2 million vehicles every single day driving our roadways have these cameras, and we're buying that imagery from them in an anonymous way to help them offset their costs, but also to help contribute that data back to our public agencies who stand to use that data to actually deliver insights and actionable directives on what to fix and where to fix to help that traveling public. So it's a core part of it, really, for us. I think the second question was really about what can we do and what are examples of that? So what we've done is actually publicize and open source much of that data. So if you go to Blinksy.com, you can actually see this live on our website. So we have a button called Explore Blinksy Maps. If you click on that map button, you can actually see examples of the entire US freeway network, of pavement marking visibility, of the presence of traffic control devices and how we see them. But we've also done this for the British roadway network, for the Australian roadway network. We even did one in advance of the inauguration. So rather than me telling you about all the cool things we can do, I'm just going to let you see it. So we've just open sourced a massive amount of data on our website that you as government agencies can actually request access to play around in your own Esri or internal data tools simply by making that request on the website. It's trying to make that really, really simple for you. Back to you, Mark.
Thanks, Mark. And that does follow up with the third question about Blinksy's map showing all the data and projects you have going on. You finished off with that. Thank you very much. Going back to our Q&A, Brad Wadinsky, you mentioned that you're moving everything over to an experience builder. What were you using, i.e. before, or what are you moving from, excuse me? Can you expand on why you're moving to EB and what the process is like? Thank you. I'm not sure who that's aimed at. Experience builder.
I think it's aimed at me,
Okay.
Michelle. Yeah, we are moving because we have everything right now in Web App Builder. And Web App Builder, as of the end of this month, is no longer going to be supported by Esri. We can continue to use it, but they're not going to update anything or support it with any changes. So that is forcing us to change over to either Experience Builder, which gives us much more variety and many pages we can use, or instant apps, which for maybe some of the simpler ones we'll do. Some of ours have custom code in them, so we can't go to Experience Builder. We're going to have to go to one of the instant apps, but it's a challenge to move over to Experience Builder, but it's very doable. It's much easier than it was a year ago, because a year ago you had to rebuild everything that you had in your Web App Builder. Now you can drop your Web App Builder into Experience Builder and go from there. But it is much more customizable. You can have multiple pages that you can open up that the people can see at one time, instead of having to do various different options that you had to do in the Web App Builder. You can even embed the dashboard, which is really good, because we make a dashboard with every single project we have. We create a dashboard for either the actual inspectors or for management. And it just takes a while to learn Experience Builder. I would get on the Esri site. If you have a contracted license with them, that information is free. You're always welcome to drop me an email or give me a call. I can put you in touch with our Experience Builder expert that is doing all our work for us. But it does give you a lot more variety and being able to see. It was hard to see on the dark background, but you have all sorts of different tabs that you can check into. Did that pretty well finish the question? Answer everything? I can't see the question.
Yeah, I think so. Michelle, you do have a follow-up. Why are you not allowed to use AI right
now? VDOT is in the process of doing 2 pilot projects to test to see if it's quote unquote safe and will not interfere with the firewall that our VITA agency, which is the Virginia Information Technology Agency, which is our big IT group, that it doesn't create any problems, it doesn't create any potential leaks. They're just not very happy about going to AI and giving people the ability to do that. That's the only thing that I've been told. AI is great. I use it at home on my own personal computer when I'm teaching my classes and doing projects in my classes. But VDOT just is not at that point yet. It's all based on what the VITA agency will allow us to do. So other state agencies in Virginia are allowed to use AI, but VDOT right now is not. I guess because we have so many data sets that are protected and private. Okay.
We have another question from Brad. I think this is also another follow-up. What did you end up using for a centralized database? Is it natively compatible with EB, dashboards, etc.?
Yeah, because with EB, you can just drop in anything that's Esri bound. So it's very easy. It's very compatible. We tend to put everything into a centralized database with behind the firewall that we have, and people have access to it. We just do an SDE layer to put it in there, and everybody has access. We are relooking at actually doing a better job for an open portal with a central database. We do have our open portal, but not everybody has put information up there. So we are still in the process of working on that to get that centralized database. That's one of the big projects that came out of both my study and the study done by the business intelligence group that I'm working with.
Thank you, Michelle. Looking in the chat, I don't see any other questions. I will throw this out there for the panel. In California, we're dealing somewhat. This is a little bit off the topic of a camera mounted for mapping purposes, but we do have issues with professional jurisdiction as far as data coming into our GIS mapping system. Data is it is what it is, but data in the wrong hands with people that don't know what it is can be dangerous. And so we have a business and professions code that says, any geodetic reference system that data must be collected by a licensed surveyor. And then we transfer that data over to GIS or design squads, whatever it may be. Just throwing this out, do you guys have questions or problems with where the data comes from and its accuracy, and is it dependable? Do you have any validation of where this data came from? Is it indeed collected by a licensed surveyor so that you can upload this data into your mapping and the accuracy can be depended on? Just a question for either one of you.
Yeah, well, Mark, like you and I were talking about, we do have some, but we have the licensed surveyors that we get from our on-call staff. They will go out and do the surveying for us and bring it back. Older data, we're not sure of, so that's where we have to be careful. But all our data goes into the CAD system and then into ProjectWise. We use Bentley products for our CAD system. So some of that we just have to assume is good because we don't have a lot of details. We have the LD200 card that we can go to, but from 2014, they really changed things and made sure that it was good data and that it was official with the surveyor's stamp and everything on the information. So that's how we do it at VDOT, and it's getting more intense. Yeah.
Yeah, with the equipment that is readily available to the public, and our continuously operating control systems that are out there that are broadcasting geodetic coordinates. Basically anybody can get on that network with a license and start collecting data.
Yeah, pulling the data
down.
Sometimes
they don't really know what that data is, what that epic is, what that datum is.
Mm-hmm.
So sometimes that data can then be purported as, valid when it's not. We call it a site calibration hasn't been done properly, so you really don't know. And that's kind of the things that we're dealing with here in California.
Yeah. Well, and I don't deal with a whole lot of that. That's where our survey project manager and right of entry project manager really deal with that. They look at that a lot when things come in and just double check QA/QC things. But, I know that data is out there, and it's unfortunate. It's just like anything else. Anything that the public can get to, the public can interpret as they want, which is unfortunate. So.
I don't have any other questions in the chat. I will say I bought a Tesla about a year ago, and it's got like 17 cameras on it, so it fits right into this kind of this topic we're talking about. And I was wondering, does Tesla sell that data back to folks like Blinksy or Brightly Software to then create digital terrain models or other types of data that might be shared to other agencies? That's just a question.
Oh, that might be a good idea.
Yeah, it might.
Brightly, we are, mostly concerned with trying to make sure that the information is accessible and available to you. So whatever data sets you have, you can bring forward in order to make better decisions. So, I mean, a data set that could be purchased that would save sort of time and money and doing actual surveying, if it was trusted data, could be a real asset.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and I mean, anything that you collect, any data you collect, you also have to have a very detailed metadata with it so that you can maybe go verify the information too. We worry very much about the metadata and trying to get in that and make sure that we know that it is coming from somebody who knows what they're doing.
Yeah, yeah.
Mm-hmm. As much as we don't like metadata, it's important.
I'm not seeing any more questions in the chat. I do have one little quick story I'll tell you all. As you know, I've been with the department for 33 years. I've been a surveyor for 44 years. And my second year in the field, I worked at a nuclear power plant in Texas called Comanche Peak. And I got the opportunity to go inside the control room. And if you can imagine a NASA-like environment, but no orbits, just this big, huge map up on the back wall. And in the center, it was like a 20 by 20 map. And in the center were the two reactors. And then around the reactors were these staggered circles. And they would go out an eighth of a mile, a quarter of a mile, a half a mile. And all of a sudden, out 10, 15 miles, 20 miles to encompass Fort Worth and Dallas. And inside all of these circles were these red pins. And so I as a 22-year-old surveyor, I'm looking at this map just amazed. And I asked one of the guys, well, what do the circles and the pins represent? And he told me the circles are 1/8 of a mile to a quarter of a mile to a half a mile. As they got out, they got wider. And the pins represent a house or a business. And then they had a number next to it. And that went to a catalog, a file in someone's file cabinet where they would pull out and they would have every name of every person that lived in that house, every person that worked in that business. And if it was a farm, they had some data on the agriculture, the farming, how many head of cattle they may have.
Mm-hmm.
And I realized today, or realized a long time ago, that was my first introduction to a GIS map.
Mm-hmm.
As primitive as it was, that's what it was. In case of a nuclear incident, they would know every single person within a certain radius of that power plant, who they were, how to get a hold of them. And then if I also remember right, they had the prevailing winds, just in case that there was maybe some sort of storm. They had an elliptical swath that was drawn right through this map. It was pretty impressive. I didn't realize what I was looking at close to 40 years ago, but I do now. So anyway, just a quick story to burn up a little time here. I hope you all
GIS. Sorry about that, Mike. Yeah, GIS is interesting. It's very informative and it's very powerful. And I mean, I teach my one-on-one students that GIS you could see it on the walls in the Stone Age. They would put the figures on there where the animals were, where the rivers were, where the trees were. So GIS has been around for, tens of thousands, if not hundreds of thousands of years, and you just don't realize it until you start to think about it. And it's very powerful. I've been at VDOT for 13 years, and I can't believe how far I've been able to take VDOT in 13 years in GIS and incorporate all the data from all the different divisions. It used to be just our little water resources. And now, as I said, my group is special. We can work with anybody at VDOT in any division to help them get the information they need. And that's very powerful. Collaboration, communication, that's a big thing.
That's it.
Mm-hmm. And that's true with anybody, any software you're showing and collecting data, is that communication, collaboration, and how can it work with GIS?
Well, I'm going to reach out to the participants. Any other questions you may have today for the panel? Mark Pittman unfortunately had to leave. He was in a hotel room and they were kicking him out, so he had to go.
Oh, no.
Yeah. Well, folks, thank you very much for attending. I think it was informative, and I appreciate all the presenters and, of course, all of you out there attending. I hope you got something from this. I know I did. And look forward to seeing you all some other time in some other virtual event. Have a great day and a happy holiday.